No, but I found it extremely unpleasant being served. Like you weren't allowed to take anything. There was a buffet. So if you wanted to take, for example, a cucumber or tomatoes, you had to be served. And you had this fellow coming around, what could I offer you? Yes. Yeah.
Do you all have headphones?
No. They were going to.
Yeah, very good.
We were all laughing about it.
That wedding was all over the European Jewish news and everything.
Everything.
That was brilliant.
No, I just don't like being served. That's somebody doing it.
No, stay at Normandy then.
Do you want meal coat?
There's only 4
Time meal coat?
There's not that kind.
You can have those two. Your night.
Anyway, good evening, Yehuda. How are you?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Good, Baruch Hashem, thank you.
What it is.
Shy, you want meal coat?
Wow.
Have some Coke today.
No, I don't drink Coke. I was told this. The doctor told me it's very unhealthy.
The World Cup thing seems to be okay.
I know. But he said for me specifically because that's our allergies and whatnot.
What sort of questions that? Just checking.
So we she worked out we got one family to me, and my brother's shver is Snitsky. I tell you how he came up to it. You know something? My nephew, from out to say, is a 3-year-old child, particularly like bright child. So he said, you know why? He's got the Snitsky brains. Snitsky brains. I said, how the world? How is it? He's right. It's a Steinberg to Greenberg. Like, where's the Snitsky brains coming into it? So he said that the great grandmother, great grandfather, one of them is a Snitsky, and particularly clever.
My dad's got the letters that my grandfather used to send to him about it forever.
Oh yes.
The return when he used to fight the Babbiches, I think the Satmars, everyone used to. They were real Kanoi.
He was a Kanoi guy.
Now I've got the Pollack, you know the Pollacks, all the Satmars. They're all my first cousins.
Oh. You got a lot of first cousins.
massive family. Pollacks are really
Right, okay. Let's get it to some actually it's a shorter daf, even so. The halacha is that at the end of a movie, what do you have to do to make a movie permitted to carry inside? The end of a chotzer, what do you need? You do need either 2 lechis or a very big post, a massive a pass. It's called pass. Is a post. Now, why would we be more machne by a chotzer than a movie? That's not so easy. But the logic is as follows. A chotzer, you do much more private things. We call a chotzer like a courtyard, a movie like a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac, what do you do in a cul-de-sac? You don't do very much. You don't do private things. The chotzer do private things. So just like a home, which you do more private things, is more enclosed. So a chotzer, which is more private, you do more private things, has to be more enclosed. A movie, which is less private, you can just do less things and it's ready. No, because Chazal wanted you to remember that it's a movie. That's what they said. So if you do something that you remember it's a movie, a chotzer, they want you to remind you it's a chotzer, so you have to do something more. A little bit, yes. There, because you mean more important, you put more important food. Okay. That's true. It's good terminology. So now, for a movie, we consider the movie, we had a shitta. How many chatzeros and how many batim do you need to have? At least a minimum of 2 chatzeros, that's 2 courtyards. And of every chotzer, a minimum of 2 houses. But we're going to have shittas that argue on this. Tolly loaded up some pictures, but I found 3 around the base medrash. Okay, we'll see. Guf Amarav. It's the and given on with base 1 line from the bottom. Guf Amarav in Movenita Belech Vikira, top of Andalef of Dalef, Adshu Batim Vechatzeus Psuchin Eseicha. You have to have a minimum of 2 houses, a minimum of 2 chatzeus. The Shmuel Afilu Bais Echad Bechotzer Achas. Even 1 house and 1 chotzer is good enough. That means if you've got a cul-de-sac, always picture Castlefield Avenue. I don't know why, and then you live there. You live there? Oh, Castlefield Avenue is a small road. So imagine Castlefield Avenue cul-de-sac. Imagine there'll only be 1 chotzer coming off it. And in that chotzer, there'll be 1 house. That's also good enough. Sorry, I made a mistake. When we say Bayis Echad v'chotzer achas, we don't mean from one house, one chotzer. We mean a house plus a chotzer. I want to show you the picture because this is something which, that's why it's good to have a picture. And it doesn't have a picture. It's marvelous. Where there must be a place where we had it. Sorry. No. Okay. I'll call them. Somebody asked from a sifter, one of them have a picture. Imagine you've got a cul-de-sac, and of one of them you've got a chotzer, and on the other side you've got a bais. Look at picture Tov Chof Hey, if you've got the ability to see picture Tov Chof Hey. You can see the Movi, right? The Movi has on one side a chuba, a broken down house. Imagine that was a built-up house, and then you've got a chotzer on the other side. Okay, we'll see the more discusses more in detail. That means you've got a little cul-de-sac. On one side you've got a chuba, on the other side you've got a chotzer. Off the chotzer comes a house. That's good enough to have a Movi. A single house. What happens? That's picture Tov Chav Vav. It's good to see it. You've got a Movi cul-de-sac. On the one side, it's coming off a path that goes to a vineyard. On the other side, you've got a chotzer from which there's only one house. I don't know. Would that be mutter or asa?
We're not have the same as a chuba.
Oh.
Vineyard, no one lives there.
Very good. There's a difference though. Oh, imagine.
Oh,
Look.
a chuba, someone can live. No?
Very good. Mamish. Because you could live there in the theory. So therefore, it's not considered a mavoi until it's something which a person can live. So you have to have on one side a chuva, meaning a house. And if you look at the picture of Chafei clearly, I want to show you someone kuda. You've got a mavoi with a house directly onto the mavoi, without the chotzer. And on the other side, you've got a chotzer off which comes a house. I don't know why they put two houses. It's a mistake. It's supposed to be one house. So that is considered good enough for Rabbi Yochanan. One of them has got a house without a chotzer. One's got a chotzer with one house. That's good enough. Because you've got two separate entities coming off it. And therefore the mavoi... What?
Does it need a chotzer?
It needs that on one side, there should be a chotzer without... Oh, if there's only a house coming directly off it, it's not considered a mavoi. Everybody agrees it's not considered a mavoi. You need to have a chotzer.
Considered a chotzer
then the mavoi would be considered a chotzer, yes. If you would have two houses directly coming off the mavoi, it would be considered a chotzer, not a mavoi. But if you've got a mavoi which goes onto a chotzer, and off the chotzer there's one house, and on the other side there's one house, the idea is that what happens is once there's a chotzer, off it comes a house. So the person who lives in that house, what will he do? The most private things he'll do in his own house. After that, things which are less private, like his washing and things like that, he does in his chotzer. And the mavoi, he sees that, so that's considered the idea of mavoi. If you've only got a mavoi of which comes directly houses, that's not good. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan goes point to Shitta D'Tanan Omar B'Shema. Discussed this very briefly many times before, we'll come to it again and again. And now it's like this. The halacha is you're not allowed to take from your house to the chotzer. Why? Because your house is your private domain, the chotzer is a public domain. What happens if I've got a chotzer, let's say we've got a chotzer shared together, and other people have got a chotzer shared together, are you allowed to carry from one chotzer to the next without an Eiruvin? There's a three-way machlokes. Shittas of Shimon is, of course, it is mutter. Why is it mutter? Because you're not carrying from a private domain, this is public, that is public. Not only that, says of Shimon, there are three kinds of enclosures. There's your roof, there's your chotzer, and there's a kafifos. Kafifos are enclosures. The Shimon holds I'm allowed to carry from my roof to your chotzer, from your chotzer to Yelim's enclosure, from his enclosure to somebody else's roof. In fact, it is possible probably to go around the whole of Manchester without ever being even this, and without any Eiruvin. From my rooftop, throw it into somebody's chotzer, from his chotzer into somebody else's enclosure. Why? And he said like this, when the Chazal made the Issa, they only made it in a situation when you're carrying from a private into a public area. Here it's all very, very public stuff, it's all mutter. That is Shittas Reb Shimon. There's another man, the one that says that all chatzeros can be carried into each other, all gagos can be carried into each other, all kalfifos can be carried into each other. But not from a chotzer to a gag, and not from a gag to a kafir. The third shitty, not even allowed to carry from one chotzer to the next one. The mice we pass in that things which were left in the chotzer is mutter to carry from the chotzer to chotzer. Because since when Shabbos came in, it was already in the chotzer, it is mutter. Things that were in the house when Shabbos came in, and then on Shabbos you carried it to the chutz which had an eruv, and then from that you want to carry it to another, that is awesome, right? So let's get it clear. Says the Gemara. Omar wunderbar echinna baz beichn tamet. It's done. Omar b'shimon echad gagos echad gafifos echad chatzeros. Rishus achas hein lekilim sheshav seleseichot. You're allowed to carry according to Shimon from a chotzer to a gag, from a gag to a kalfaf. Why? Because none of it is a private domain. It's like carrying within a kalfaf, which we said is mutter. Because you're not carrying, it's like carrying within, let's say you've got Castlefield Avenue and then lead on to Castleton Road. Let's say Woods do. So you're not doing from Chazal, it's all mutter minater. Chazal forbids certain things because it looks like Mishusach Dushasavim. But this doesn't look like Mishusach Dushasavim. It looks like the same area to each other. But if, for example, when Shabbos came in, you had a chair in your house, and then you carried it into Castlefield Road. Why? Because you made an ale with all the families of Castlefield. On Shabbos you carried it. And now you want to carry it from Castlefield to Castleton on Shabbos, it is awesome. Because why? Because originally it was started off Shabbos in your private house. And carrying it from your house to Castleton is forbidden. Why is that forbidden? Because Castleton is other people's rishus. Now to carry it to Castlefield is mutter because you made an eruv. But from there to there is forbidden. That's shittus of Shimon. V'omar Rav, halacha k'Rab Shimon, v'hu sheloi eruv. Says that Rav, the halacha is like Shimon as long as you didn't make an eruv. But eruv wants to make an eruv because he doesn't want to afukim the batim lechotza. That means, according to Rab Shimon, the strict letter of the law would be to carry from one chotza to another chotza is mutter. Comes along Rav and says, but if you make an eruv from the chotzer to the house, then what will happen is, then you'll end up carrying from the house to the chotzer, and then eventually from the chotzer to the next chotzer. So therefore, we only allow you to carry from one chotzer to the next if there's no eruv within that chotzer. It's always mutter. And we're not chayshish when you come to carry from a house. And we're not chayshish. We allow you to carry from chotzer to chotzer, and we're not chayshish that you might come to carry from a house to the chotzer. Why? Because we say that you'll remember chotzer you'll carry to the chotzer, but from the house to the chotzer is forbidden. Says meaning like this. In the story of Tov Chof Hei, that picture, Tov Chof Hei, we're talking about, according to Rabbi Yechanan, you're allowed to make an eruv with a mob. Now, the person in the churva, did he join in the eruv? No. The reason being, he doesn't eat there, doesn't sleep there, it's a ruin. Now, if we allow you to make an eruv in such a mob, there's a small chashash that you may come to carry from the mob into the churva. And that is also. Why is it also to carry from mob into the churva? Because that person, the owner of the churva, never joined in. So how can we allow it? The answer is, we're not chayshish. Just like Rabbi Yechanan says, you're allowed to carry from chotzer to chotzer, and we're not chayshish that you'll come to carry from your house to the chotzer, and then from the chotzer to the chotzer.
You're saying there's no one in the churva.
There's no one in the churva.
So then, it's as if there's no one there. So then that mob should become like his chotzer.
He didn't join in. So.
He didn't join in. He means he owns the property, and therefore there is another property which is owned. That means he's got the ability to ask, but it doesn't. But he didn't join in because
he's there, but not part of the eruv.
He owns a property, but he's not there. That's the correct way to put it. So therefore, we're not chayshish. You're not allowed to carry into the churva, and we're not chayshish that you may come to do so.
But then why do you need to? Then why do you need? If he's not there,
yes.
Then why do you need to make a? Why do you need to make?
I mean, the case if you own a property in the chotzer, then in the case if you don't live there or eat there, you can't join in the eruv. No. But therefore, you could do is you could give a rental over to somebody else to take over your possession in order that he should join in the eruv. But you still, if you don't join in the eruv, nobody's allowed to carry into your house because that house is a private domain. It is the churva belongs to a private person. So therefore, the fact that it's not joining the eruv is still forbidden for him to carry from the churva, from the house, from the movi, into the churva. That's still forbidden. Clear? Says the Gemara. Yosef Abuna v'Kamal Hoshmaitza. Abuna said over this halacha that what? That in order to have a kosher mavu, you only need to have one house and one chotzer, as we explained. One house opening directly into the mavu, and one chotzer opening up into the mavu, and from there into the house. Omari Abelazar Bar Bei Rav, you or Talmud Chacham, Bar Bei Rav is a expression of Talmud Chacham. Somebody learns to speak French. Omar Shmuel Hochi, did Shmuel really say this? Omar En. Yes, Shmuel, I stand by my words. Imagine I say to you a psak in the name of Sofa. He said, did Sofa really say it? And I said to you, yes, he said. So Omar Achvili Ushpize, show me where he lives. That means he asked him to show him where Shmuel lives. Achvili. So he showed him where Shmuel lives. Also, the Shmuel went in front of Shmuel. Omar Mahachi, did you Shmuel say such a thing? That means, what did you Shmuel say? That you can be a Movi is mutter, even though it's only got one house on one side and a chotz and a house on the other side. Omalei, yes, I stand by my words. This is what I said. He said to me, how can you say such a thing? Well, Ma'udoma, you Shmuel yourself said, if you remember, we had this once before, that Shmuel holds when it comes to Maseches Eiruvin, you have to redact it in the Mishnahs. And what's the Mishnah say? Added to our Mishnah. And the Mishnah says that the same halachas apply from Movi to a chotze as a chotze to a house. And you can be medayik the loshen of the Mishnah. It is loshen rabim chatzevos, Movi lechatzeres, chatzeres the bottom. Since it's all loshen rabim, so therefore, what do you have to have? A minimum of chatzeres and a minimum of batim. So how can you Shmuel say that? If you read the Mishnah literally very carefully, it says two chatzeres, two batim, two eben, because it says Movi lechatzeros plural, chatzeres the bottom. So therefore, how can you say that one house and one chotz is good enough? Ishtik, he kept quiet. Shmuel did not reply. So Shmuel says, Kiblo minei, or le kiblo minei. Did Shmuel change his mind? That means Shmuel said two contradictory statements. One statement he said, it comes to Eiruvin, you have to be very makbid. So makbid that you have to have two chatzeres to bat. And another statement he said is that for Movi to be good enough, you only need to have one chotzer and one house. So it's contradictory. So we want to know, what did Shmuel actually hold lemaskana? What was his real psak? Doshima. The Homer Boya, there was this Movoy, which was exactly the same. It had one house, which was actually a shul, which came off from a chotza, and a house on the other side. The name of the person who lived there was called Evus Ba'ihi. It's interesting. Omadle Lechi. He made a Lechi. Is a lechi good enough for Movu? Yes. For a chotze, it's not good enough. What do you need for a chotze? What did we say before? Or two lechs, right? V'shorei Shmuel, and Shmuel permitted it. Top of Ayin Daled on base. Also, of Onan came Shadyeh, and after Shmuel died, after Shmuel was nifta, he broke the lechi. Why? He didn't want people to rely on this lechi. He broke it. So Avos said, "V'voyo dedana be." The Mobu that have always lived there, Mishmeidim al Shmuel, and Shmuel was permitted it in the name of our Shmuel. Neisav ono barav nishtei mon. He can break it from me. Mon is like minon from us. Can he come along and break a lechi which I always lived in, and Shmuel gave his approval? Imagine you've got a Mobu. Shmuel gave his approval. Now you're going to start disregarding it. Is a bad that Shmuel held by his guns, stuck by his guns. Why? Because there was one house coming off a chotz, plus another house was only one house, and it was a movi, and Shmuel permitted it. It says, well, really, Shmuel was crazy that you need to have two houses and two chatzes. Here's a complicated story. There was a shul, and off the shul there was a house. I don't think he made a picture of it. Off the shul there was a house. Besides for the house that came off the shul, there was a chazan. Now the chazan used to sleep in shul and eat elsewhere. Now, do you remember what's the halacha when we talk about Eiruvin chatzevos? What defines your living space?
No, one says sleep, one says eat. What is the thing?
Very good. It is a machlokes. What sleep says eat? But who says what? Who is it a machlokes between who and who? Oh, the Shmuel, Vav and Shmuel. Machlokes Vav and Shmuel.
Says where you sleep.
Oh, so you see, it's machlokes Vav and Shmuel. Says it more like this. Let's see inside. There was a chazan davach name bebeis say you would eat at home, didn't eat in shul. Vasi bais bebeikdish he slept in shul. Maisi not allowed to sleep in shul, so it says he slept in the side room of the shul. Okay. Avos by Yisov mokim pitagora. Avos held that the food is most important, and therefore the chazan, since the chazan never ate in shul, Avos held that where is the chazan's real living space? Elsewhere. And since the chazan's living space is elsewhere, There's nobody living in this except for one person. So he held that Shmuel permitted it only because of the fact that Shmuel stuck to his guns, that one person is good enough. If you remember, what did Shmuel say? Shmuel says that your sleeping place, and therefore the reason why Shmuel permitted it was only because it was a living cause, and therefore there were two families, it wasn't just one. And therefore it is no raya, except we got no raya that Shmuel, it's like therefore them as Shmuel hosts need to have two houses. Okay, more copy. Let's go to the picture. See the picture. Let's wait if you've got the picture in front of you. It's this picture now. Tov Chav Zayin and Tov Chav Ches. So Tov Chav Zayin, you've got a few Yidden living in one compound. If you look at Tov Chav Zayin, and the compound is onto a chotzer. And then on the other chotzer, you've got one goy. Now, he came along with a chumrah over here, a big chumrah, that you're not allowed to, these Yidden, if you look inside this house, every Yid lives in a different compound. It's like 3 families. Tov Chav Zayin. There's 3 families, one side chotzer, and one girl on the other side. And if you look at Tov Chav Ches, it's exactly the same. What's the difference between Tov Chav Zayin and Tov Chav Ches?
There's no wall in between.
Yeah, it's not. It's one big chutzah.
Mashenki Tov Chav Zayin.
Tov Chav Zayin is a mobile, isn't it?
Very good. Tov Chav Zayin is a mobi with 2 chatzeros, one chotzer with one goy, one chotzer with 3 Yidden, and Tov Chav Ches is one chotzer, sharing a chotzer.
Surely, in both pictures where the Yisrael lives, is one house.
No, it's not. It's 3
It
houses.
looks like one house.
The layout of
Yeah, we said before already that if you go upstairs and downstairs, how many houses is it? 2. Kavachime here, where it's proper built. It's like semi-detached, or no, terraced houses, like terraced houses. Oh.
And I'm just noticing on the Yisrael side, you've got 2 doors going out on the other side. So they don't really have to use them.
No, okay, that's not the Ikeda, because the Ikeda over here we're discussing.
Analyzing the pictures.
The question over here in both cases is, can we make an Eruv between the Yidden themselves? Can we make, I would have said so. In fact, I would be sure so. Why in the world not? Why shouldn't the Yidden be able to make an Eruv? Well, okay, you have to have from the Goy maybe, but why shouldn't they make an
In
Eruv?
which picture? In the one with the mob oil? Or
Both. In both.
In both? I would say the one with the mob oil you could.
I would say
Maybe
both
not
you
in
could.
the-
Why not?
Why can't you press that with the guy?
No, so you'd have to have a problem. You'd have to sort out the Goy, rent from him or something. Rent from it, but the answer, there's nothing halachically wrong with it. Comes along Rav. What? I will see. Comes along Rav and says you can't make an Eiruvin either. I will see in a minute why. There are 2 more. Let's see a little bit inside first. Okay, let's get like this. Omar Yehuda, Omar Rav. Mobu should sit there with Kechavim. One side you've got a goy living by himself. Sit there with his son. You can't make an Eruv that they should be able to carry through the windows. That means, what's the issue? If you look carefully in the picture, anyway can't get to each other.
Yeah, no.
The houses don't open up into each other, only through the windows.
Where's that? On the
In the picture.
That's what I was thinking.
But you're not allowed to make an Eruv. Not allowed to make an Eruv.
If what?
Is that because the doors go out?
We'll see the minute why. 2 malachim in the Gemara. Ein Avi Sedech Lisa Derech Vasach Mobi. Omna Balav Yosef Moab Afilu B'Chotza. So Abai asked up Yosef, what would the halacha be in the next picture where it's in the Chotza? And even in a Chotza, Rav would hold it as Asa. Both by Mobi it is Asa, both by Chotza it is Asa. So he said like this. Abai now explains why did he ask him, is the halacha the same by Chotza? Meaning, Abai at the back of his mind had 2 understandings as to why Rav forbade it by Mobi. And he wanted to know, did Rav forbid it by Chotza? And by working out what Rav would say by Chotza, he would work out the reasoning of Rav by Movi. If Rav wanted to say by Chotza, might have a minute time to If you look at Tov Chav Zayin, Rav holds you have to have, for a Movi, he has to have 2 chatzeros, and off the chatzeros has to have 2 houses. Now, does anybody remember a goy's property? What did we say about a goy's property at the beginning of this parak? Right at the beginning of this parak. What did we say about a goy's property?
Not counting it as a,
Very good.
as 2 or 3.
No,
It's
we
not-
don't count that at
even
all.
count yeah.
In fact, with Abonon Be'etzem, you don't need to even rent the goy's property. If you've got a yid and a goy living together, what's the halacha? What do we pass? The yid and the goy living together. Do you have to make an eruv? No, why not? Oh, if you're sharing a chutzah, the answer is a goy is like an animal farm, and therefore just like you've got chickens in your house, you don't say that the chutzah is shared between me and the chickens. It belongs to me, the chutzah. And therefore, when there's two yidden and a goy, they said you have to rent from the goy. Why? We don't want you to live with the goy. But when there's only one yid and a goy, we don't care about that. Why not? Because generally you'd be scared of the goy. So therefore, again, the ikon I want to bring out from that whole sugi, which we started off at Dodge. Remember, Chaim? Remember the whole sugi? It's a very ancient sugi. It comes out that goy's dira is lo shmei dira. So look at a picture of Tov Chav Zayin, if you look at it for a second. Would you call that a mavui with two chatzirs and houses coming off it? No. Why not? Because on one side there's no houses. So maybe that's Rav's problem. If that would be Rav's problem, going to Tov Chav Ches, would that be a problem? No.
No.
Why would that be a problem? Because we're not discussing Movi, we're just discussing Chatzeros. Rav said for Movi to be a Movi, you have to have two Chatzeros, the two houses coming off it. But you've only got going there, so then Rav said that's not considered. But by Chotzer, we're not discussing making it a Movi. We're going to anyway use two lechin or a pass, make a nice big post. So therefore, Rav there should agree that we don't care about the fact that the Goy lives there. Again, so again, says the Gemara, if the reasoning of Rav was because since there's a goy living there, a goy is not considered having a property, and since a goy is not considered having a property, you don't have two chadseos and two batim. So Rav needs to teach it to me. Why does Rav not need to teach me this halacha of a goy? Because Rav already told me, the beginning of the page, if you remember, was Rav who said that you have to have two chatzos and two batim. So Rav didn't need to tell me the halacha of Tov Chav Zayin that you're not allowed to carry in that movi without doing something about it. Because Rav already told me you need to have two chatzos and two batim, and a goy is not considered. What would you answer? Why did Rav have to teach me this halacha? To remind me that even though I said you need to have two chatzos and two batim, you might have said, well, look, a goy, the whole reasoning is in order to make it a public place. A goy has the ability, even if he doesn't own a property, to make it a public place. So tell you normally, why did Rav say it twice? Tzricha. The top of Ein Heom Dira. It's considered enough of a dira that what? That is enough to make two chatzos to batim. Komash malon dira sev ticham leishmon dira. If it only forbidden by a goy, and he wouldn't tell me two chatzos to batim, have a mina lo down the bottom camel, I still wouldn't know how many houses. Kamash malon bottom chain, you need to have two houses again. Rav Abaya said like this when he first heard the statement of Rav that in picture Tov Chav Zayin. You've got a mobi with a chutzah with houses on one side and goyim on the other side. You're not allowed to carry this mobi. Rav Abai said, I thought perhaps the reason of Rav was because since it's goyim don't consider as if they're owning properties, therefore it's not two chatzos and two batim. Says Abai, and when I heard that, I had the kasha to myself. Why did Rav have to teach it to me? You already told me the halacha that two chatzos and two batim you need to have for mobi. The answer is no, you need both halachas. Why? If you teach me the halacha, you need two houses and two chatzeros, I still wouldn't know, does a goy have the ability to be considered as two, just like we saw the chuva, according to Shmuel works. Why? Because at the day it's a property, so therefore it makes it slightly more public. So maybe a goy has the ability to make it a public area. Therefore, I needed the other halacha to tell me that a goy doesn't. And if you don't tell me the halacha by a goy that you can't carry, I still wouldn't know the parameters, what you do need. Therefore, I had to make the statement to chatzos to bat. But now the Rabbi Yosef taught me that what? That Rav not only forbade it by Movi and Tov Chav Zayin, but he also forbade it in Tov Chav Ches, where there's nothing to do with Movi. There we're just discussing a few Yidden living together with one goy. And then you can't tell me the problem is because you have to have two chasos or two batim, because we're not discussing a Movi. We're just discussing one chotzer. Says the Gemara. A whole new svar, very difficult svar. If you look at this picture carefully, this Yid who lives on the outer house, right? If you look at both pictures, he's going to get very close to the goy. Why? Why is he very close to the goy? A Yid won't live with a goy, he's scared to get killed. But this Yid is not scared he's going to get killed. Why is he not scared he's going to get killed? Because there's a few Yidden living without him. But on the other hand, is he closest to the goy? Yes, because normally, if you would have one house here, let's say the four corners of the chutzah. So what happens is, if one of them belongs to the goy, three belong to Yidden, So we're not so worried, so read into the things. But here, what's going to happen is he's the only one opening up onto the goy. Everybody else, as actually Sonny pointed out, have got gates to the back garden. So they're never going to meet the goy every day. What's going to happen is this Yid is going to be the only one to open up onto the goy. And therefore Chazal did not want that. And therefore that's why Rav said, I'm not going to allow any Eruv in such a chutzah. No Eruv. Why? Because I don't want Yidden to live like this. Because also that's the Omar Yosef Yochad Shana Rab Tablet Omar Kechavim Chasing. He said the halacha by a goat twice. I didn't know what he was saying. What's the two halachas by a goat? And the answer is he was saying once by Mavoi, once by Chotza. In such a situation, you can't make an Eruv. Why can't you make an Eruv? Not to do with the fact that you need two chatzos to bottom. It's to do with the fact we don't want a Yid to be the last one to be living with a goy, and therefore we forbid it. Now I have a question that was a short daf, and tomorrow Friday is a shorter time, but I don't know how to still a daf a day. What? The Mishnah.
Then you have to say it again tomorrow.
Yes. You know what? We'll do as much as we can tomorrow. 5 past 8 to 25 to 9.
Then what's the Shabbos? You've got plenty of time.
I must have got plenty of time, so we don't finish.
We're eating Shabbos pizza.
Right.
An hour extra, you're right.
1 hour extra. I would like to take this opportunity to wish a very, very warm mazel for all the members of the Shiur, Rabbi Shpilman, on a bar mitzvah. Mazel tov, a great Shishav Nachas and Simcha, you should see your son going up to it. Talmud Chacham and Yerei Shemayim. You should share next time it's a Shem next Simcha, you should be able to make it in a more public way.
He's learning next week.
He's learning next week? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know. Where, which next week? Next week. Oh, where?
He's doing here. No.
He's learning here?
Early minion.
The whole Lech Lecha, it's a very long parasha.
The Val is, I don't know, he's decided he wants the whole thing, but I think he was.
Right, it's good for you.
Goyim don't
No,
take.
I don't believe nothing.
We were doing 16,000 people. We were doing
He's doing.
Goyim don't make
Oh, it's going to get a deal. I haven't heard that. I think we're going to argue.
You never have to.
We think he'll be empty as he can have no family.
Yeah, no, that's what I think.
Yeah.
It's my family on coming in.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Well,
So,
David Mayer.
yeah, and Mazel Tov to David Meir was sure. Okay, well, when it comes, we'll make it.
Yeah.
Very nice. So, how's this boy? What's his son's name? What's his son's name?
Harry Lane.
I Lane. Vlev Gurvitz or Vlev Lapin?
No.
Why you decided what?
I'll tell you why. Because my wife liked the name Harry,
Right.
and I told her the shitter, I'm not calling him Harry.